Hi, guys. How is everybody? I'm happy to see you. Thank you so much for coming. I know it was hard. It's the end of the day, and it's hot, and the parking is insanity right now, but we found a way to get here, and that's what matters. So anyway, first I'd like to thank Kati, Enigma Creative, for having me. Usually I don't like doing these things because I get very anxious, but I'm here. That's what matters. I'm happy to show you what I've been up to. I asked Kati, what was the subject behind this, and she said that it's what inspires you, what has been inspiring you all this time, because inspiration is really important. And I'd have to say, first I want to clarify what the name of this conference is, and it's called Chavorruca Border Girl. And the reason it's called Chavorruca, I don't know how many people know what a Chavorruca is. Can you raise your hands? Okay, there's a couple of us in here that kind of know what a Chavorruca is. So Chavorruca, I've been looking around because I only know a couple of definitions of what it is, and I immediately place myself in the category because one common denominator is that I'm older than 30, and I have a mortgage, and I have a child, and I'm tired, and my coccyx hurts. So that immediately plays, and I'm always being grumpy and saying, in my days, Pearl Jam was the thing, and all that. And now, it's different, and the kids are like, no, you got to try this. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you don't know squat. So anyway, that instantly classifies me about Chavorruca. I looked around, I looked to see what it is in Mexico, and it varies from place to place. But Tijuana, technically, that's what it is, Chavorruca, right? So that's what it is. And Border Girl, because I technically grew up on the border, right? That's, I think, the common denominator that all of us have in this group right here, because we live San Diego, Tijuana, we're sister cities. A lot of people tell me, oh my God, you live in Mexico, because I live in Los Angeles. Su casa está ahí cuando gusten. Your house is there whenever you wish it to be. So they're like, oh my God, you drove all the way down here. That's so far away. And I'm like, no, dude, it's 2 hours. It's a 2-hour drive. And if you drive like me, it's an hour, 10-minute drive, right? So no problem, hop on. So this is a picture that all of us are very familiar with. I grew up crossing the border, I feel since I was a fetus in my mom's stomach, who is right here. So she's right there talking to her comadre. Mom, say hi. Hi, Lucy. Yes, okay, that's Lucy. Yes, so I'm sure all of us cross the border. We have a million stories. Everybody has a million stories crossing the border. The stress of getting to school on time, the stress of getting to work on time, which I also did illegally for a little bit. Shh, quiet. Shh. So, yeah, a million stories of people that we saw in the border. This already is inspiration. As a kid, it already started creating inspiration in me. So, as we all know, in Tijuana, we call it el otro lado, alias los estates, or alias USA, no? And right here we have Tijuana, and right next to it, there's one of the oldest colonies or city or towns in Tijuana called Colonia Libertad. Colonia Libertad, I am not kidding you. You see that star? That's Colonia Libertad. The border's right there. And those guys right there, I've actually seen them. I don't know how many of you saw those, but I've seen them when I was crossing the border, going back in. You could see, back in my day, see, that's why I'm a Chavorruca, seeing, crossing the freeway at night, and we would literally be, cheering them on to, get to where they had to go. Back then, things weren't as hard as they are now, but, it humbles me to be able to say that I saw this, So anyway, like I was saying, I grew up literally a hop, skip, and a jump away from the border. You could see from the clinic that I was born in, you could literally see the border. And my dad delivered me. He was the first person to see my butt. So I grew up with this, right? I went, like many of us, I went to school, like Mexicans, Tijuana people, a lot of us, who had the luck, we got to cross the border every day to go to school, and I went to school in IB. I have some friends here with me, like Gabe Ruby over there, knows me since I was in kindergarten. Yeah, Yurika Loca is here too. She knows me. All of us were in the same situation where we would cross the border every day. Well, Gabe didn't, but Yuri did. And we grew up with this, right? Chula Vista, we grew up with Disneyland, we grew up with 91X, listening to that music, and all that. Bob's Big Boy, oh my God, so cool. Their Sundays are delicious. So then in Tijuana, I had this. So I had, literature right here. We had classy literature, we had entertainment, we had tacos, we had big hats. So it was like culture clash right there. I grew up with this, watching it, inspiration, right? More inspiration. Pee-wee, Punky Brewster, Reading Rainbow. Am I supposed to be like this? I don't know. So Tijuana, I was watching this, right? On Saturdays, I was watching Golden Cinema. Silver Screen, Pedro Infante, Cantinflas, Tintan. I was watching Burbujas. I was watching, does anybody know who that is? Yes, we do. A lot of soap operas. Peggy, I shouldn't have been watching that, but I was watching it. So this is me, and I started growing up, and I went to second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. Bam, right? So I got to 8th grade, and then I was like, I'm gonna go to high school now with all my friends. Nice little warm shell, only like 30 kids in the classroom, and it was awesome. And my mom said, no, you're going down to Tijuana. My sister, my older sister who's there, hi Ali, say hi. And my second older sister and my youngest sister also, all of us got pushed down to Tijuana to go down and continue our studies, rightfully so. I wouldn't change anything now because I got in touch even more with my Mexican roots. If I thought that I was in touch with my Mexican roots, the inspiration that was coming at me at that time, I was, oh, how I got a treat for you. So I was in for culture shock, but the good kind, right? So I don't know what happened, but they put me in this 9th grade. That was only 9th grade, that's it. And this school apparently catered to kids that were kicked out from other schools. So I came from this very Catholic upbringing, and I get there and everybody's like, mosh pit, crazy time. And it was insanity, and I was like, is this what it's supposed to be like? I don't know. So the next place I went to was, as everybody knows, this is the Casino of Agua Caliente, now known as La Lázaro. This was Los Jaguares, yes, very good, yes. So this is my high school, and at the entrance exam, this is what I read recently, the statistics. 2,500 students per year do the entrance exam for 10th grade, okay, for 9th grade or 10th grade. And only 65% get in. That's a lie. That's a lie. Like that, every year, I'm not kidding you, when I was there, there was a morning period, there was an evening period, and there was a night period. People were it was like a nightclub. Just people wrote to, it was crazy people, metalheads coming in, and you got the goths and the folkloric people walking around, and it's just a crazy mix. It's like a salad of people. And me, there I am. I'm like, yay, I graduated from architecture. I don't know anything about architecture, but I'm gonna try. By then, the clock was ticking. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna study? What am I gonna do? Where am I focused, right? So, somewhere along the way, this character walks in around, I'd say, 11th grade, 12th grade. And he was like, I love art, and I love cartoons. Do you like art, and do you like cartoons? I love art, and I love cartoons. Do you like drawing? I love drawing, yay! So somewhere along the way, we formed Mixopolis, right? Mixopolis is our company. And that right there, for those who don't understand, come frutas y verduras is something that they would say at the end of commercials in Spanish every time, just to remind you to eat fruits and vegetables. So, Mixopolis, right? But I'm getting ahead of myself. So this was me on the day I graduated. Yay! And as you can see, there was a million things on the curriculum. There was typography. A lot of these things are just obsolete now, right? Like airbrush. Sure, and what else was there that's I don't know. So anyway, illustration kept popping up. I loved illustration and you know, character design, and I started combining both of them, and I was like, I want more, because it was only 3 years, and they were very like, do what you want, very hippy-dippy, like, experiment, find yourselves, and we're like, oh, I'm gonna go downstairs and eat a torta, a sandwich, instead of going to illustration class. So I would do that, and then I was like, I need to get better at this, and one day I went to the Y conferences, and I found out that there was there was an art center at night. Intensive course that was given by this man. And Rafa Lopez is right there. Say hi, Rafa. And Rafa Lopez is like the king of kings. So he's the king of illustration. He's my idol. And he was crazy enough to take on, I think it was a week, Rafa? Or a month of weekends. So it was only 4. But every time we had to like, he was just like, okay, today we're gonna learn how to do textures and we're gonna use a lot of purple, because I like purple. So he would be just purple, all right. Now we're gonna do like anatomy. And there was this one guy from the art center that was just so good. And he would just sit down and with just one single stroke, you could tell it was like a lady's like curve on her back. It was just gorgeous. And here I am just trying to draw an eye. And he was just like nailing it every time. And it's a humbling experience. But I learned so much in like the 4, 5 sessions that I had with Rafa, and I kept in touch with him during all these years, and I consider him family. Thank you, Rafa, for being in my life. So anyway, with Jorge and with Rafa and with my new weapon in my arsenal that Rafa had given me, I started to like look around into books, and I started looking. I travel a lot with my husband. We take Luca with us, and we have absolutely no holds barred. We've gone to Brazil, we've gone to like Greece, we've gone to everywhere. And everywhere I go, I always try and get inspiration from the colors, from the textures, from everything. But there's a lot of common denominators that I wind up looking at, and a lot of them I keep on coming back to in Mexico. A lot of them have to do with nature, color, whimsy, and tradition. And a lot of it is nostalgia, as we all know. If we move away from somewhere where we don't live anymore, we get kind of bummed out because our roots are there, you know? Like we get kind of sad, and we remember things that maybe were not that great, like, oh, I remember that, you know, that those paletas that across the street were so delicious, and they were sure they were infested with flies. And they were made with like water from the hose in somebody's garden, but they were delicious, right? That's your version of when you were like 5 years old and it was summer and it was hot and you had lollipop all over your face, but you were happy, you know? And sure, you got sick, but it didn't matter. So this is one of the things that I did a long time ago, and I hope that somebody does it again. This was a lot of fun. This is, again, this is the nostalgia of when I was growing up. We had piñatas at parties, right? So Cha, who happens to be the bass player of a group called Phobia, became a friend of ours. And he had a gallery in Mexico City called Guru. And Guru, they said, hey, we're trying to get as many artists as we can to do a design and turnarounds, simple turnarounds that would allow us to make a piñata. So this thing was actually about my size, and it was hanging inside a gallery with a bunch of other piñatas. It was so cool. It was called Piñatarama, adequately named. And this is just a little illustration that I made to go with it, like they're chasing the donkey, like, yay, I'm gonna kill you. This obviously is based on Árboles de la Vida, which I absolutely adore. This one's about life and the creation. And I really love Alexander Gerard. So I tried tapping into a lot of his stuff. This is a poster I made for El Festival Internacional de Guadalajara. And I have these 3 Alibris, actually. They're 3 little musicians that I have in my studio, and one day I was like looking at them and I was like, I really love how jagged and imperfect they are, so I decided to incorporate them into my poster. This is actually based on a historic cantina that existed in Revolution Avenue. A long time ago when people wore bowler hats, there was a really long bar that took up about the size of a street, like a really long street. And legend has it that the bar itself was as long as the street. That's why it was called La Ballena, which means the whale. So I made a little poster kind of like tipping its hat to it. This is more inspiration from my childhood, paletas. I don't know, I will give somebody a prize if they can tell me what game that is. Which one? Eso, ¿quién dijo eso? Ah, Rafa! Whatever, Rafa. And this is one of my favorite panaderias in Tijuana. I'm sorry, I love it. I love it so much. If you're ever down there, please try it because it's so good. It's so hard to find. It's like, dude, you have to off-road to get there because if you're not careful, when you turn the corner, you can get run over by a truck. Like, you're like, you have to pull around the corner and you get all dusty, but it's so worth it and it's so oily, but it's delicious. So these are taxis that used to exist in Tijuana, and they go up and down the main boulevard, and that's what I used to get into after I would get out from Lázaro, and I'd be so tired that sometimes I would fall asleep in the back and wind up in, I don't know, like El Gato Bravo, El Gato Bronco, all the way on the other side of town, and I'd be like, where am I? But it was nice because I got to know my city. So anyway, as everybody knows, these are the Tijuana donkeys. You go to Revolution Avenue, you get nice pictures with them. I don't know if they're still there. I hope they are. And this is el consomé del Sanborns. If anybody is going to go down to Tijuana, please go to Sanborns, Revolution Avenue, because that soup is so good. And the ladies' costumes are amazing. This is something I did for Kathy recently, and it symbolizes the strength of women because we're warriors, and this is our cycle. And this is a poster I did for Carla Morrison for Ruido Fest. Tijuana's full of oddities, really weird stuff. And this is called La Mona. And she's technically a statue that's a house, and people live in it. There's a guy that lives in it. It was gonna be for La Bienal, the 10th one, I think. And he didn't finish it on time, but he was like, you know what, I'm gonna finish her anyway. So he finished it, and I believe that the chest is the bedroom, and this area is the bathroom. I'm not kidding. I should have brought the thing. But anyway, I looked at her, and she's kind of like our Statue of Liberty, you know, if you think about it. And I read a graffiti tag that somebody put in Tijuana that said, también de este lado hay sueños, which means on this side, meaning Tijuana, there's also dreams, because everyone thinks that once they cross, that's where the dreams are, but that's not true.
Why did she specifically raise the thinking?
There's, just cause, dude. Just cause. Go with it. Go with it. So we all know what happened recently in Tijuana with the fires, and that was really scary. I was at my sister's house, and my niece was actually like, Tijuana's on fire! And I'm like, what is happening? And at first I thought she was joking, and then I was like, oh my God, she's serious. Obviously chaos was like erupted that night because nobody knew what was going on, but the next day we found out and things were put back to normal. But it saddens me that my city is gradually exploding with people and causing chaos, and you know, it's not what I remember. It's growing and creating new memories for me, but it will always be Tijuana for me. So I made this because Tijuana is burning. And despite all the sadness, you know, and all the craziness that Tijuana brings, this happened during COVID. We survived COVID. We're getting there, right? I mean, I think all of us have adventures and situations and sadness that it brought us. But within it are people like try and bring joy into the spotlight. And one of them was, these guys said, if the mountain, what is the thing? If the mountain won't come to the, yes, that one. Thank you, thank you. The mountain will come to Muhammad, right? And these guys get on a truck, and they go from neighborhood to neighborhood, and they go, hey, you want some music? And they will get their xylophone down, and they will go, which one you want? And they will play everything from La Chona to like anything, like Ojos Españoles, like all those typical classic ones. I'm sure if you ask them, they will play the Super Mario Brothers song and everything that you want. So I think that's really cool. You know, they're like, we're gonna do it. And they survived the pandemic. So I made this in their honor. So really quickly, I'm gonna go through this really fast because I know I only have 30 minutes, I think, Katy?
It's okay with chat? Yes.
Yes, okay, here we go. Okay, so the first thing that I did, it was El Tigre, and I did that with Jorge, right? This was the production that we did. And they looked at us kind of weird at Nickelodeon, but they accepted it. They said, we don't know anything really about what these Latinos are talking about, just go with it, inclusion. So we did that, and I was like, okay, so what do you want me to do? And Jorge said, I need you to design me her friend. So I did Frida. And it's kind of, her last name is a tip of the hat to my brother-in-law's last name, whose name happens to be Suar. Yes. This is one of the coolest things about drawing characters, that you get cosplay, right? I love it. Here's some more designs, some more designs, some more designs. And then every once in a while, you get this thing that pops up where you're working, and then they're like, oh, she designs? Let's get her. So Hasbro called me, and they said, hey, do you want to do a take on Gem and the Holograms? I grew up with Gem and the Holograms. I was like, oh, yes, I do. So I did them, and they were like, we're going to do a show, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be fantastic. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do Gem and the Holograms, cool beans, you know, synergy, and this is my take on them. And then the Gem and the Holograms live-action movie happened, and it bombed. And I didn't get to do it. But that's okay, because I got something for my portfolio. I also got to do this, which was for Anima Studios, and it was called The Guardians of Oz. This was what I gave them. Many things can change along the way. That's one of the learning curves that happened to me when I took this project on, and it was that you might turn something in, I'm sure it happens in design, and in the end, it gets wonky, so I'm not gonna say anything. Just look for it. So this is another one that happened while I was actually pregnant with Luca, and we were pitching ideas out to Disney. And this one was about a girl named Carmen, and she had to prove to the authorities that she could stay in school for 30 days. So every episode was going to be something different. And these were the characters. I also happened to do a children's book with Simon & Schuster. This was really cool because they said we're getting people from different parts of the world. So they got a Chinese illustrator, they got somebody from Spain, they got somebody from India, and they gave them like Sleeping Beauty, and they gave them like different stories. And I got Cinderella, and I always thought, you know what? Cinderella's dress to me always looked like the Veracruzanos. So Veracruz, yeah, Veracruz. So I based it on their designs. And I also took a lot of influence from my heritage, which is Michoacan. That's me up there. And this is kind of based on my grandma. And I used a lot of that on this. This was really cool. This is Surfers Healing. I love doing this project. This was pro bono. I have a friend named Izzy, and Izzy is the head guy at Surfers Healing. And what he does is that he takes kids that have, I don't know, ADHD, autism, ADD, or even just, you know, whatever kid wants to do it, and he teaches them to surf. And so he can keep this project going on. He invites artists to illustrate on surfboards. And I got to illustrate one, and it sold. Yay. It was hard, by the way. It's really big. I didn't know how big a surfboard was until I got it. It got sent in the mail, and we just kept pulling it out of the door, and we're like, oh, my God. So, okay, then was the Book of Life. This was Maria, and she was based on Claudia Cardinal. This was La Muerte when she was older, and Jorge said, you just need to give her the colors that she has, but older. That's my grandma. So the grandma was based on my grandma. This is my mother-in-law, and Jorge was like, when you draw Manolo's mom, I want you to look at them and base it on them. So this is what the mother kind of looked like. The Adelitas. And then the main character, which was La Muerte, right? Ta-da. Okay, before I continue, we had to do a lot of research for her, specifically with the way that her hat was going to function, because it's humongous, right? Like we were trying to figure out how we were going to frame her, how she was going to walk in a frame, because if you're walking with somebody really with a big hat, they're going to be constantly smacking them in the head, you know, in real action. So we figured it out. We got a couple cheats in there, but then we were trying to figure out what to do with the design of her dress. So as everybody knows, we based it on Parisian style, because that's what was happening in that era, right, of La Catrina, because we based her on La Catrina. That's what she is. La Catrina came about kind of sort of, like people knew her more around the when El Porfiriato was happening. And this Porfirio Diaz guy was this guy, and he was our president. So this dude was like, hey, I really like everything that's happening in Paris. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a lot of that influence over here. Hence, we got these beautiful dresses that were happening in that time. And Diego Rivera was like, dude, now's not the time to be spending money because we're in a revolution. What, are you crazy? So he started drawing this lady right here, and that's the one everybody knows, and he kind of was mocking what was going on over here. So based on all of that craziness, we drew her. And it started off as a sketch, and then she was short and a little more round. And then Jorge said, we're going to stretch her. And she literally took the design and went, yeah, and then we got in a big fight. So then we had Maya and the three, right? And the main thing I wanted to show in Maya was the beauty in our Latino characteristics as females. The more indigenous you go, wherever you go, Latin America is huge, so wherever you go, the more indigenous you are, those characteristics are so beautiful, like the almond-shaped eyes, the full lips, the very caramel skin. It's something to be glorified. I love the nose, Mayan noses. So I was like, we have to do that. And Jorge was like, you're preaching to the choir, sister. So we started messing around with the costume of what she was going to look like as a warrior. And this is kind of how we work. So I give in the design, I color it. We give it to somebody who renders it and puts it all like with shadows and shading and everything, so that by the time we pass it to the modelers and they do the maquette, they already figure out how the three-dimensional look of it is going to look like, how it's going to shine, how the material is going to look. We try and get to it as close as possible. Same thing here. Illustration, the sketch, my color, the volume, CG model, and her design on her head was based on all the ribbons that you see in back of Purepecha women, which is, again, my heritage. This is what she looked like as, as a warrior, as a mother warrior. And back then, when I designed her, Jorge was like, oh, she looks cool, but guess what? Things changed in the script. And I was like, what happened in the script? She's pregnant now. I'm like, what? Okay, well, let's work with it. So I took the antlers off of a deer because I've always thought that they look very majestic and very, I don't know, there's a sort of elegance, and they require like attention, full attention to them. So I took it and I wove the ribbons into it. These are my notes. And at first, oh my gosh, like getting those ribbons to go on was insanity. But in the end, Esteban, our modeler, I don't know what he was smoking or drinking, he figured it out. These are my initial sketches for Chimi. This time Jorge was like, I need you to do 4, cut it out. So I gave him 4, and then he was like, whittle it down to 1 more, and then after I whittled it out to another one, that's the one that hit. And he's like, okay, now take it, we're gonna give it 3-dimensional spin, give your notes, and then I hopped onto this lady. This lady is actually based on the fairy godmother in the Cinderella book, who's actually based on my grandma. And I thought, wouldn't it be cute if she was based on those little like frijol things that we use when we make our beans? My mom has one, it's a relic. That she will leave it to me in her will. And then I have to, this is another thing you have to do. You have to give them like exact references of what you want the texture to look like, right? And I wanted her hair to look like my favorite sculpture, which is Árbol de la Vida, a tree of life. And that's what she wound up looking. And her face, by the way, was also based on La Cara de los Viejitos. It's a dance from Michoacán. And then this is the widow queen. Jorge said she has to be someone that looks like she's carrying the weight of the world on her head. Because she is. Her father died, and he left her a kingdom. So she's this little girl with like a huge kingdom that she has to lead into battle, and I did that. We based her on an MFA wrestler. She's like, I need her to look like a wrestler. I had Chola friends, I love them. This is my homage to them. And then this was really cool because you have to do like a lot of promo for this stuff, and they asked Stephanie Beatriz and they asked Zoe Saldana, hey, if you were a goddess, what kind of goddess would you be? And Zoe said, I'd be the goddess of teleportation, and they showed this. And Stephanie said, I'd be the goddess of chill, so I did this. So this is something that I was really proud to do. How was it? So Chris Nee, this lady right here, the lady that did Doc McStuffins, she's amazing. She got in contact with Jorge and said, hey, guess what? My buddies, the Obamas, are doing this thing that was based on School of Rock. Remember School of Rock? Yeah, very cool animation. It was, for those that don't know, they were animations back in the day, back in my day, that were, that showed about Congress, and they showed about like all that stuff, like the government, and they made it fun. So they decided to bring it out again, and the Obamas said, we want to do it. So Chris Nee said, Jorge, would you and Sandra like to do one? And he was like, yeah. So we got the subject of immigration. And I did the girls, Jorge did the guys, and these are my girls. If you guys want to see it, it's on Netflix. I couldn't download it on YouTube. There's no YouTube anywhere, but it's there. Oh, we were gonna, Sofia Vergara was going to back us up, but in the end she bailed. But that's her. So this is secret. Okay, you can't tell anybody because I might get in trouble. This is the latest thing that I'm working on other than the million other things that Jorge has on my desk. So I arrive and I'm like, I'm gonna work on my projects. And Jorge's like, nope, bang. Here's something I've been working on. So do you guys know what this is? So for those of you that don't know, this is called burbujas. And if they're watching right now, this is gonna be publicized or something. I'm giving you PR ahead of the time, dudes. So it's kind of a weird, Muppety, Sid and Marty Kroftish, yeah, kind of thing. It was really trippy. But we grew up on it. It was one of the few things that we had to our name as 5-year-old children with paletas on our face, you know? Like, it was one of the few things that we would be like, oh my God, burbujas is on. And sometimes they would move it and you'd be like, damn it, they moved it, I missed it. And the way it starts is I give them 3 different options of the characters, right? This is how I work. This is how Mixopolis Incorporated works. We give them 3 versions of the characters, and then they were like, looked at them and they were like, that's really weird. They don't look anything like it. And I was like, well, that's the point. We don't want to go to the same thing. It's like, yeah, but you know, we got to be respectful of the characters, you know. And I was like, okay. So we narrowed it down to this. This is where we're at right now. Mafafa. And that's it. Yay! That was fun.